This is Smarter San Diego TV.
Millennials and baby boomers alike, they want to be in urban environments right now.
Thank God for the Electoral College vote.
In a 4-hour breakfast, we raised $9,000. So that's something that we take pretty seriously.
And you can't diet your way into being lean and fit. They go together.
In New York City, deciding what's best for the rest of the freaking country.
This is not a market built on a stack of cards. It's a solid foundation.
0%. That is a thumbs up.
Everyone has a life worth telling a story about. And the more adversity that you faced, the deeper your story.
Well, am I going to be okay in it? Like, am I going to be able to walk?
There's just so much creativity in this town that it's hard to hide it.
Well, you have these beliefs, well, what do you do with it?
Are you being a greedy seller? We have realtor from North Compass Realty to tell us how to find out if you are. Please welcome Nadia Colucci.
And she's back. Nadia is here. How you doing, darling?
How are you?
Great
Thanks
to
for
see you.
having me.
Yes, of course. This is a topic that's near and dear to me. Obviously, hosting Win This Listing, a show you'll be coming on in the near future. I should say we have a show in PB that we're shooting in what, 3 weeks, and your cast. So I can't wait to have you on.
Me too.
But you know, in talking to a lot of home sellers through the casting of that show and hosting that show, I've seen firsthand some egregiously greedy home sellers. And it's one of those things where you see it and you go, wow, they're in outer space. They've lost touch with reality. But it's something that happens a lot. And usually it's sort of a trigger that, hey, we might be at the top here. So first of all, you know, how do you know if you're a seller and you are being greedy? Like, what are some of the red flags?
Well, I guess in this market, most likely if you're a seller, you are being greedy. Short answer, no, I'm kidding, you're not. I think what I have seen day to day is a lot of price reductions in certain areas.
I've been seeing those too.
A lot. So in this market with low inventory, with a huge demand to be here, there should be no reason for a price reduction if you priced it right, obviously. And that's, I think, what's key. Price it right from the beginning, sells faster, you secure a better buyer and a better escrow. I think sellers feel that they are leaving money on the table because it's such a seller's market, so they become greedy and they overprice a property. What ends up happening is I think they actually do themselves a disservice. For example, Carmel Valley, it's always a hot spot, so I go there.
Yeah.
Average home, 2,500 to 3,500 square feet. The average sales price is about 1.2. This is just the last couple months. 44% had a price reduction. It's a huge amount.
In Carmel Valley.
In Carmel Valley. At that price, or at that square footage range. That's a lot, right?
That's too much.
It is way too much. And the average market time is about 28 days, which I think for a lot of people, they'd be like, that's great. But it's not. I actually think it's too long to be on the market in low inventory with the market that we have here in San Diego. I think you should be on the market 10 days. And if you don't have the solid interest, you priced it wrong or something's wrong with the house. Of course, the house has to be indicative of a proper, ready-to-go sale. But I then, of that 44%, once those have sold, then 40% sell for over the newly adjusted list price. Does that make sense? So, example, I had a client who was adamant that her home was worth more than I thought. We talked about it, and I was willing for her, given the relationship, to list it at her price first. That was not my recommendation. So I said, you're going to end up chasing the market down, but let's do it. If you really, really want to do this, I'll do this with you. And you know, you want to support your clients and be there for them. Hopefully they listen to you. But we ended up overpricing it per her. We came down. It sat on the market for 3 months. We ended up having to take it off the market. Then she painted, carpeted, and staged it the way I'd recommended off the bat. We priced it for $75,000 less, trickled back up, and got the price a little under what I had always thought we would get. So in that situation, you price it, for example, she wanted $975. I said we should list it at $949 because then you'll get the $925 that you want.
Right.
So we went $975, waited 3.5 months, came down to $899, and worked our way back up to $915.
Gotcha.
So much closer, but she could have secured that 4 months earlier and you know, not worried and fretted about it, and maybe at that point not even had to do the paint, carpet, and staging. So, you know, I think if you have the right people on your team and you trust, listen to them. I mean, I think, you know, hire the right professional. They do this daily. They should be able to tell you how to price it, and you shouldn't feel. I think sellers feel right now, oh, I don't want to leave, again, money on the table, so I'm going to overprice it. There's a fine line, a little over.
We know you can definitely overprice a property. There's a famous agent that I know of who always says, why stop there? How about 38 million? You know, if you are overpricing it to a certain point.
Yeah.
So, and so but can you underprice? I mean, is it possible to underprice a property and have that cost you money, or does the market always find its way to where it's going to go?
In this market right now, probably you can't underprice it. I think you'll get the competitive multiple offers, which will drive the price up. I think sellers deserve to procure a fair market value, and I think buyers deserve to pay it. So if you can keep it, and because of the low inventory, sellers might be getting just a bit above that. In fact, appraisal becomes an issue and things like that. But if you're overpaying as a buyer, what are you overpaying? Maybe 15, 20 grand, 30 grand. If the alternative is renting out in San Diego today, and you're renting at $3,000 a month, it's $36,000 for the year, 72 for 2 years. I'd rather overpay today 20 grand than 2 years pay 72 out of pocket with no tax benefits, no interest write-offs, and no equity.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess it depends on maybe what the alternative is for the buyer. But I
think also with the sellers too, what are they doing? You know, because if they're also buying, where should they really be focusing their energy? I think a lot of times they're so concerned about what it is that they're going to get with the sale that they're forgetting that, hey, you also have another side.
Right.
And that's actually the more difficult side in this market. That's where you really need to focus your attention on. That to me seems to be the greatest disservice that a lot of these sellers are providing themselves, a self-inflicted disservice, is they focus so much on the sell side. And it's okay to focus on the sell side. I'm not saying you shouldn't, 50% on the sell side at least, but not 100%. You know, because then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, maybe we finally got the offer we wanted. We put all of our thought and energy and effort into this thing, and now where are we going? Now we're forced to rent. I've seen multiple sellers forced to rent because they, be careful what you ask for, they got it, and then it was like, oh, wow, I'm kind of surprised. Like, I can't believe someone paid this much. But now you're in a 1-year lease.
Right.
So how much did you give back? You know, I mean that's the thing. So I think if you're selling and buying, you have to spend at least 50% of your energy on the buy side because that is more important. So I think that would be a big red flag. If you're selling this market and you're also a buyer, how much energy are you spending on the buy side? Or how would you like to end up in a house that you don't even love because it was the best one you saw in the short window and you had to buy? You know what I mean? There's so many things that could go wrong there.
Yeah, I find that seller, well, at least the ones that I've been blessed to work with are the opposite. So they'll take my advice on the sales side of things and then they focus on the buy. And maybe it's a lot, I think, better and easier of a process for them to go through just emotionally and financially and everything. So this is what we should secure with our price point, and then this is what you should shop for. So I feel at that point, buyers are also super flexible. So the buyer that buys that home, but maybe we do a lease back or a rent back until we secure another property.
Yeah.
But the sellers then get more motivated the second they find a home that they really want. Because they know it's hard to find today. So then that, I think it evens out a little bit.
Balances itself a little bit. Yeah. And we should be clear here that when we say greedy, there's a difference between everyone wants to sell their home for the top dollar.
They should,
I mean, everybody wants to. You're not the only seller who wants to sell your home for top dollar. Everybody wants to do that.
Right.
But when we say being greedy, what we're meaning is you're starting to lose reason. You've lost touch a little bit with some of the solid advice that you're getting from some of the things that you're seeing. I mean, I've seen situations where highest sale in the neighborhood, 1.2. Homeowner thinks my house is worth 1.5.
This just happened to us. We came in, Carmel Valley had a listing. The home next door went on the market, 400 square feet bigger and a pool. Ours did not have that. They priced it at almost $300,000 more than ours. And I'm like, what? Are they sitting on like a well, like an oil well? Like what's under that property? That's not under mine. So they spent a few months on the market, had multiple price reductions. They ended up closing for 50 grand more than mine, and mine was a great deal. It had been appraised for more than my buyer paid for it, and we had some negotiations there. But aside from that, they closed for only 50 more with a pool and bigger square footage. I think they left money on the table. That should have closed for 80 to 100 more, quite possibly. And they didn't because they came out of the gate at this outrageous number, chased it down. Buyers see that a property's been on the market for a while. It's either an unreasonable seller, something's wrong with it, or they're asking too much money. If it's priced right, it'll sell.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of that greed. Like you said, everybody wants as much as they can get, but let's be honest and reasonable.
You don't get to make the number up, though.
No,
you don't get to decide what the number is.
No, it's not the random number.
And if you're just deciding what the number is, you're probably being greedy.
Right.
Most likely.
That's
if
the
you're
good
unwilling to look at the reality of what's going on,
Mhm.
if you're unwilling to price your property at least at the highest, most recent comp, at least there, or a little lower if you really want to create a crazy frenzy going on.
And you should.
Isn't that best practice?
I think so.
Just slightly under what you think the market value would be. If you think the house is worth 125, price it at 119.
That's smart.
Just put it right there.
But then don't do what sellers are doing now and counter me at over list price by some outrageous number too. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of crazy out there. Yes, but I think that's guidance from the agents. The right agent takes and fields every call from a buyer's agent and lets them know what their sellers want. Take that call. A lot of people are like 1-800 this, and you never talk to the agent. I don't like that. Take the call, explain what your seller's looking for, and if it's within reason, you should get it.
That's so ridiculous.
You tell me. I got to do this every day.
Nadia Colucci, thank you so much for coming in today. And hey, guess what? You can check out Nadia too. You can call Nadia. It's callnadia.com. North Compass Realty is, that's your brand. That's my brand. And what is your tagline?
Discover home with us.
Discover home with us. Nadia is not a secret agent. You can reach her at callnadia.com.
Though I feel like a secret agent sometimes, a little superhero-esque at times.
Thank you so much for coming in today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial break.
What can we expect from the Chula Vista real estate market? Please welcome the leader of Team Manzon, Anthony Manzon.
And the breakdancing realtor is back. Anthony Manzon is in the house.
Woo!
Tony Manzoni, how you doing, buddy?
Thank you for having me.
All right, great to have you here. It's about that time. It's about that time in the Chula Vista real estate market where it starts to get really hot.
Super hot.
Super hot, and it might be a shorter window than some of the other marketplaces because of the school situation, right? You guys only have like a 1 month summer or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or some of them are year round, aren't they?
Yeah, so one thing that's unique about Chula Vista is that a lot of the schools are still year-round schools, which basically means when school starts, you have 3 months of school, then you have 3 weeks off. 3 months of school, 3 weeks off, 3 months of school. Then for summer, you actually have 6 weeks of vacation. Traditional school, it's like you start in September, you go all the way through till June, and then you have 3 months off. So Chula Vista is unique because most of the schools there are year-round.
Interesting. So that what does that do for the real estate space? Because usually that summer window is the time for everybody to, all right, let's pack up a house, let's get it cleaned up, let's sell it, let's get moved into a new house, get settled, and then boom, we're into the new school year.
Yeah, what that does is it speeds up the whole timeline. It turns a 3 month process really into a 6 week process. I mean, if you think about it, for the kids that are moving, the parents want to get them registered for the schools. And they have to get registered before school starts. So it's not like at the 6 week mark, you could still get into those schools. They actually want to speed it up and get them registered, closed escrow as soon as possible, because that's what you need to register for the school. So in that 1 6 week time frame, to be honest, it's crazy. Like, people should be doing their stuff right now, that they need to put their home on the market, get it sold, get into escrow now, and yet everybody kind of thinks after school's over, after promotion, after the graduation party, that's when we'll start. And to be honest, that's kind of too late. I mean, the transactions will still happen, people get registered into schools, but what happens is everybody's thinking that at the same time, all the properties go on the market at the same time. And then you get a huge flood of people who are what we call contingent buyers and contingent sellers, which means they have to sell their home to buy another home, and it just kind of floods the market with a lot of people doing contingent sales and contingent purchases as well.
Is that a disadvantage for them then, because of the fact that there's so many people doing it at the same time? Could that hurt you as far as how much you're able to get for your home?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can hurt you in a lot of ways. I mean, if you're thinking about selling your property right now, think about it this way. when we were selling a property in Eastlake right now, there's only one in all of Eastlake that was on the market, and we were excited because we were the only one about to hit. And when summer hits, if everybody's thinking about selling at the same time, then you have 10 properties on the market. Supply and demand, because there's more to choose from, there's less demand for your property because there's a couple other ones available as well. Granted, there are more buyers out there at the same time as well, and yet when you are the only home on the market in a specific neighborhood that everyone wants to buy in, you're like the pretty girl at prom. You know, everybody wants that one. They're willing to pay more. Not that you can pay for that, but they're willing to pay more for the house. They do whatever it takes to get that house, you know, and it's just, that's the unfortunate thing about our market. And it's fortunate because a lot of stuff has to happen in 6 weeks in order to make it work.
Yeah, so it's that condensed time frame just means the more you can be prepared for it, the better. And what you're saying is right now is the time to start preparing for that.
Exactly.
And how could you prepare? I mean, what if I was going to do this in that window, if I'm going to sell by, what could I do right now that would get me ready for it?
What I would do, to be honest, is, so the school zones are ending, schools are ending at the beginning of July, so in the next week or two they're going to be ending. To be honest, I think the best thing to do to set yourself up for success is put your property on the market, at least have a good marketing plan in place so when your home hits the market, you're at least in escrow already, so that when you're looking for that next property, you can put offers in saying, my property's in escrow already, we have a committed buyer, and we have the best chance of closing on your property even though we are contingent. If you hit the market and you're trying to put in offers at the same time, to be honest, in this market, sellers aren't even taking you seriously. They're like, okay, I like your offer, but you're not on the market yet, or you are on the market and you don't have an accepted offer. You can't really take those people seriously, especially when you have a lot of offers on the property. So it's really about stacking the cards in your favor as high as possible. And what that means is, at a minimum, having your property on the market. To have another card, I guess, stacked on your side is to have an offer accepted on your property already. The best thing that you could do is have it on the market, have an accepted offer, and have your buyer already have done their inspections and remove contingencies. That's the best way to set yourself up for success if you're doing a contingent sale.
Gosh, that's just awesome words of wisdom there as we're looking at the Team Manzon website. Obviously, you can search properties for sale there. You can even search properties that for rent. If you're in the market to rent or you know someone who is, you can search all that right there on teammanzon.com. Speaking of properties for sale, you've got a couple that are just about to hit the market.
Yeah.
Fresh ones.
We got 2 fresh ones coming up. These are amazing properties, and I'm always going to be 100% honest with you, Derek. These are going to sell the first weekend, guaranteed. The reason why these are so great, so we got one at 481 Westby. That's in Chula Vista, 91910. That's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,900 square feet, single-story house. We're selling that one for $495.
Oh, dude.
Completely
Seriously?
upgraded. Super nice.
See, this is what I'm saying. There are still, the market's been hot for a long time now. Long time. I mean, what, 5, 6 years of like straight good market? And look at that. You got a 4.2 on a single story for under $500,000.
Yep, no HOA, no Melrose, on a good corner lot. Man, it's an amazing one. It's going to sell for sure.
That's an unbelievable deal.
Yeah, that one's a great one. And then we have another one in Eastlake. This one's at 2041 Waterbury. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It's 1,447 square feet, and this one's priced at $510.
Gotcha.
So different neighborhood. In Eastlake, that's still an amazing price.
Yeah,
and that one's going to sell. And that one's also completely upgraded. So both of these, move-in ready. You don't have to do any work to move into them.
Holy smokes. Both right around $500,000. Very affordable in what is considered to be an unaffordable marketplace of San Diego. That's awesome that you have those listings, dude. Those are good to go.
They're good to go. Buyers, I mean, they're always asking us, they're reaching out to us, you know, what properties are coming up first or what's coming up next. I think as a buyer, it's important to work with a realtor who knows inventory, who has inventory, and knows what's coming on because, let's face it, the good homes sell quickly, and unless you're the first one to know about it, you're going to be in a bidding war. You're going to be in a bidding war regardless. At least set yourself up for success so that when you put in offers on a property, you have all the tools and everything in your possession to get the house.
Yeah, also connect, you know, with a real estate agent who's plugged in, like yourself. Go to teammanzon.com. Anthony's not a secret agent. You can reach out to him there, teammanzon.com, and get the inside track. Say, hey, you know, this is what we're looking for. Maybe we don't want to move until next year. Maybe we don't want to move until next school year. Maybe it's we want to wait till after the holidays. Maybe you have some sort of trigger in your own timeline that's telling you this is when we're going to be ready to go. If you communicate and have good representation immediately, then that becomes on your radar now. Now you're talking to other agents in your office or other agents around the town, and saying, you know what, I have a buyer who's looking for something like that coming up around this time. Let me know if you have anything. And before you know it, that's how you get the inside track.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way that it can be done. If you're in Chula Vista, Team Manzon is who it should be done with. Anthony, thank you so much for coming in
Thank
today.
you for having me over,
Great
Derek.
to see you, brother. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
All of us here at San Diego send our love and deepest condolences to everyone in Manchester. And our next guest is here to discuss what to do in a situation like this. Please welcome former Navy SEAL, Andrew Paul.
All right, and he's back. Andrew Paul is in the house. What's up, my man?
Hey, buddy.
Great to see you.
You too.
Former Navy SEAL and veteran advocate Andrew Paul, of course, from the Andrew Paul Veteran Advocate Facebook page.
Yes, we've got some followers over there.
You got some followers, like 36,000+. That's pretty crazy, man. Good stuff that you're doing over there. Talking about the things that you really believe in, helping veterans, transitioning veterans, jobs, application in daily life, and of course, professionally, you're in the mortgage business.
Correct.
So you have told me before that you are the best damn VA lender in the country. And I know you believe that.
Well, here it's funny. I don't like to make those kinds of claims. I know you said it before, but every time I come on here, you're like, you said you're the best. I don't like to make those kinds of boastful claims. I do believe it. I do believe it though, but I don't like boast about it like that.
Well, we've got you here for that reason today.
Fantastic.
As well as the recent attack in London, which is a suicide bomber. And one of the things I like to do when there are these really bad situations that tend to get us collectively sort of sulking, and everyone is really really sad about it. I always try to think about, well, what can we learn from this? How can we at least take something away from this to either make ourselves safer, to make ourselves more aware? And so I thought, who better to ask than a former Navy SEAL on what should you do when all of a sudden the enemy is upon you? And if you're just an average person and you don't have any training, because what we saw at this Ariana Grande concert was a panic that took place. And fortunately, there was only the one bomb that went off, because there was an even better opportunity after the panic ensued for the terrorists to attack, but they were done at that point, thankfully.
Right.
So, what do you do? What do you tell the average person? What's your advice for the average person who might be in the midst of going to a concert, a ball game or something, and all of a sudden a bomb goes off or there's a gunman? What do you do? What's the first thing you should do?
Well, the first thing I would tell you, there's two parts to this. The immediate situation is what you're talking about at the event, is to remain calm. Panic and hysteria are not going to allow you to make good decisions. And a lot of times, just think about when you fly on an airplane. They give you that safety briefing before you take off, and they tell you that the closest exit might be behind you. What happens is, in a panic situation, after the first explosion or attack happens, people start panicking and moving like sheep or lemmings. And when that happens, you're not looking around to decide and to determine what the best course of action is. The safest exit or the safest place to go might be right behind you where you're not looking, or it might be to stay right where you are. And if you just start kind of rolling with the herd, I think that's where you're going to run into problems. In fact, so far, most of these attacks haven't been super coordinated, thank goodness. But if somebody were ever put together a very coordinated attack, you'd set off one explosion in one area, wait for everybody to panic and race for this exit, and set up another attack at that location. And so sometimes the best thing you can do is just to remain calm. We say in the military and the SEAL teams, observe, orient, decide, act. It's Boyd's classic OODA loop. So observe the situation. Orient yourself to where the threat may be coming from or what the reality of the situation may be. Decide on the best course of action and then act. And if you just kind of skip right to act, you may be running headlong right into another attack, or just getting slammed up against a door that doesn't open properly from the herd of people coming behind you. So calm down.
Yeah, and be aware that maybe where you are right in that moment might be the best place to be.
Right.
And doing nothing, going nowhere, no action, might actually be the right action.
That's right.
At least for a period of time, because what you see there is in those panics, you're right, people just flood. That it seems like everyone decides, well, this is the safe place to go. We have to go this way. But how do you know that place is safe?
You don't. Most people are just running with the herd, and in fact, because there's nobody there to give any clear direction on what the safest course of action may be, maybe the best thing that you can do in that situation is to help out everybody else who is freaking out and panicking. Look around. Look if there's a safe exit someplace here or there, and take charge of the situation. Many people in a situation like that are simply looking for some direction.
Yeah.
And if you were to take charge and guide people, that might help to save a lot of lives and to provide a safe course of action for people to follow. But panicking and running straight to act is not the way to go.
Yeah, it could really cause you problems. Yeah. In fact, there were a lot of people who were injured in the panic.
Yeah, in the stampede.
Stampede.
That's right.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's a brutal thing. The stampede that takes place when you have thousands of people all going into one corridor in a panicked way.
You know, I think back there to being overseas when we would get mortared, you would hear either sirens or you could even hear the mortars coming in, and people would start running, and I would think, where are you running to? Like, you don't actually know where that damn thing is going to land. So, I mean, just think statistically, you don't know where that mortar round is going to land. It could be landing right where you're standing. It could be landing 20 feet away. It could be landing 50 feet in the opposite direction. And if you just start running in some direction, statistically, you're no safer for running in that direction than staying right where you are. I mean, so calm down, take a look around. Now, the other side of this whole equation is that you got to remember that terrorists typically are a smaller type of organization. They're not as well organized, well funded, and sourced as, say, a government is or like a military unit is. And so they're looking to achieve a massive result with a small number of people and or resources. And so their goal is to instill panic. The extent that you can remain calm, observe, orient, decide, and act around the situation, you can reduce the effectiveness of the panic that they're trying to ensue. And then in the aftermath, think about what do you do with the rest of your life? I mean, I know there are people right now who are thinking, well, I don't want to travel overseas. I don't want to go to England or London or whatever because it could be dangerous. There's been the knife attack. There's been this explosion. That's giving those terrorists exactly what they're looking for. The way you disarm them and make their methods less effective is by not allowing them to then control and shape how you live your life. You know, this past week we had Memorial Day weekend, and I was encouraging people to go out and live their life. I mean, don't sit around cowering in a corner and crying. You honor the dead in how you live. And so to no longer go to a concert or not travel or see the countryside or go to a foreign country and experience what that culture is like because you're afraid of what some terrorists may do, well, now you've given them exactly what they've wanted. You've empowered them even further. No, live your life, and you erode away the very foundation of what they're hoping to accomplish.
It's 100% true. What a great message. And I mean, statistically, we'll go back to that. Even if you were at the concert, you still 99.5% of the people who were at the concert did not get injured.
Right.
At all. So now they may have some psychological repercussions as a result of being there, but you know, 99.5% of people were not harmed. There was not a scratch on their body.
Right.
Even if you were at that concert. So,
right.
You know, people say, oh, I'm not going to never go to London. Well, I mean, gosh, if you were even there at the venue, you were most likely okay. So,
right.
Yeah, that's exactly what the terrorists are looking for. They want you to think this could happen anywhere at any time, and you're in danger right now, right now.
Yeah, think of the psychology of it. That's part of what they're trying to accomplish. Think about the use of IEDs and snipers in combat. How many men or women do snipers or IEDs actually take out? Well, I mean, they do take people out, but the effect of snipers on the battlefield and IEDs on the battlefield is more powerful than the number of people who are actually injured or killed by those specific attacks. It's the psychological effect if you allow it to get to you. People are afraid to go out, they're afraid to do a patrol, they're afraid to go into certain areas because they're thinking about the impending lone sniper shot or the impending IED. And you then give strength and power to the enemy by allowing those psychological effects to take hold. The way you win against those is just let it go. I mean, you can't control it. You cannot control yourself, whether you go to a concert and an explosion goes off. Yeah, you can control not going, so go live in a box someplace. I mean, what kind of a life is that?
It's no kind of life. That's not the kind of life that all of these men and women have fought for us to have.
Exactly. You honor the dead in how you live.
100%. And let's shift gears here somewhat, Andrew, to your professional life in the mortgage industry, because one of the things I've noticed recently, and this has been going on for a long time, I kind of thought we were past this, but it has resurfaced in the sense that a lot of agents, because we're in multiple offer situations, are sort of disregarding the VA offers.
Right.
And in the past, 10, 15 years ago, maybe there was some truth to it. Maybe there was. I don't know. But these days, it certainly doesn't seem like there is. So can I get you to speak directly to maybe some of those agents who?
Yeah. There's real estate agents out there who do not understand how the VA loan works, and it's because of that lack of understanding or the poor experience they've had with a very sort of large banker institution who didn't do a good job on executing that VA loan that has led these agents to think that there's a problem with the VA loan. The reality is that the VA is not involved in 99% of VA loan cases. A bank does the loan. The appraisers who do VA appraisals are appraisers just like any other appraiser. In fact, they're FHA and they're conventional appraisers. They just sign up to be on the roster to do appraisals for the VA as well. And so there's a lot of misinformation. And what I find is that as a VA expert who did 90% of my business is VA loans, when I speak to an agent and I dispel some of those myths and misconceptions, they understand that a pre-approved veteran who's approved for a loan, that loan's, we can close in 21 days. It's good money. It's a good buyer. And heck, it's a veteran who's trying to, get a piece of the rock in San Diego or wherever they're buying and utilize that benefit that they've earned. And what a great thing to help a veteran be able to buy a house. And so the idea to me that people have an apprehension to accepting a veteran's offer, first of all, it's very frustrating for me. And second of all, it's because it's based on a lack of knowledge and understanding. So agents, if you have an apprehension to accepting a VA offer, I would just employ, hey, give me a call. I mean, I would be happy to talk you through whatever your concerns are. Maybe the concerns you have are valid, but most of the time, the concerns that agents have are not founded in the reality. It's founded in a misinformation and a misunderstanding of how the VA loan actually works.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it seems to me, as an agent, if I'm accepting offers, the most important thing to me is what is the likelihood that this buyer is going to do what it takes to close. They're going to go through the whole process and they're going to close this loan. They're a committed buyer.
Yep.
That's what I'm really looking for.
But it also comes down to how thorough of a job the lender that buyer is working with has done. Loans that fall out are usually because the lender that buyer, and by the way, this is true whether it's a VA buyer, whether it's an FHA buyer, whether it's a conventional buyer, comes down to how thorough that lender has been in the pre-approval process. So some banks simply go, all right, yeah, how much do you make? Great. Maybe they pull a credit report, and then they even give them a piece of paper that says they're pre-qualified. And that term pre-qualification versus pre-approval mean very different things to different lenders and loan officers in the business. And as a result, there's a dissimilar experience that agents have in the marketplace. And a lot of banks do not do a thorough job. And so 2.5 weeks into the process, that bank is then coming back saying, oh, it turns out they don't qualify. Well, that's because they didn't do the proper exploration up front, and they didn't identify those problems ahead of time. And those are valid concerns. And if you're a real estate agent, you should be placing a phone call to the loan officer or the bank that has provided this pre-approval letter and say, well, how much paperwork do you have on this guy? Have you actually verified income and assets ahead of time? Or are you just basing this based off of what they told you verbally over the phone?
So what you're saying is that it's not the program that they're using, it's the way that they've been vetted up front. And
that's right.
That's what the agents should be investigating and not just assuming that one is better than the other.
And the reason why it's become a problem is because there's a couple of very large institutions in our country that do a lot of the VA loans and they don't do a thorough job up front. And so the crappy job that some of these large banks do on doing VA loans for some of these veterans has translated into being synonymous with that's how the VA loan works. And that's just not the case. It's really just, to be blunt, a crappy job that these big banks are doing. And the reason why they do a crappy job is because they're so large and they have so many applicants on a daily basis, they don't have time to do a thorough vetting up front. So they do a very surface level, cursory pre-qualification, and then they deal with it later. And that's why a lot of those deals end up falling through.
That sounds like a really bad idea, bad plan. Well, what message would you have to say for veterans in this marketplace? I personally know some who've just tapped out. They just aren't, they aren't out there writing offers anymore. They aren't looking anymore. They're just they've given up. What would you say to
so that's the other side. So veterans, what you have to do is you have to, first of all, work with a lender that's going to do a thorough pre-approval so that when you write that offer and that letter goes in to that listing agent and to that listing agent and seller knows that your pre-approval is solid and that all the information has been vetted up front so that they have a very high degree of confidence that you're a legit buyer, that your deal is going to close, that you're not working with somebody who hasn't really looked at your information yet, number one. Number two, you've got to work with a real estate agent who knows what they're doing. There are so many real estate agents out there, and I mean, I hate to say it, they're working with you and you're the second VA loan they've ever worked with. And they're not writing the offer very well. They're not putting together the terms so that the seller or the listing agent on the other side understands the strength of your offer. And so remember this, we just got through saying that there's listing agents and sellers who can be apprehensive to accepting a VA offer because of misinformation. And then you, as a veteran, may be working with a real estate agent who doesn't know that much about VA loans either, and so they're putting this offer together for you and not being very clear and articulate to the seller or the listing agent as to how to address the problems and concerns that that seller or listing agent has. So you have to work with a listing agent, or excuse me, with a buyer's agent who knows VA loans and how to represent a veteran in a transaction. They know how to write a strong offer and articulate the strength of that offer to that seller and to that listing agent. And the last thing I would tell you about that is, again, just working with a lender who knows what they're doing. Someone like me, when you write an offer and we've done a thorough pre-approval for you, I call the listing agent on your behalf. Now the listing agent knows that you're working with a lender who knows what they're doing, who communicates proactively, and is going to be there to help work through problems or challenges as they come up through the process, if they come up. A seller may be concerned that if you're working with a big bank or an institution, if challenges come up, who do they call? Can they get a hold of anybody? Has the appraisal been ordered? What's the status of the loan docs? Are we going to close on time? They can't even get basic answers like that from big banks. But you work with somebody who's a direct lender, who has a personal interest and is working directly with you, we can answer those questions, and that's going to present a strong offer on your behalf, and therefore give you a high degree of chance of getting your offer accepted.
Fantastic stuff. Mr. Andrew Paul, thank you so much for coming in today. You can check him out on Facebook, the Andrew Paul Veteran Advocate page. Of course, you're always looking for veterans who are business owners and different people in the community to connect with and help promote them. Transitioning veterans, you've been great as far as providing advice and direction for them on things they should do, things they shouldn't do as well, to make sure that they have as much information, as much possibility for success as they can coming out. So great stuff. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, the bottom line is I'm passionate about helping my fellow veterans. So give me a call, whether that's for a loan, whether it's advice on transitioning. I'm happy to help. Reach out. And if you know any veterans who are looking to buy or need to refinance, I'm never too busy for your referrals.
Tremendous stuff. Hey, if I was getting a VA loan, you're the guy I would use. I'll tell you that.
Thanks,
right
buddy.
now.
Appreciate it.
All right, stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.
This is Smarter San Diego TV.
Welcome to our very first edition of The Bigger Picture, where we discuss the big questions in life with a diverse group of guests. Today we are joined by Rabbi Josh Burrows.
I'm here to talk about the Jewish take on all these questions that Derek apparently has for us. I think it'll be exciting and fun.
Yoga instructor Heather Foat.
I am really excited to go beyond just surface level talk. I'm excited to see how this will all unfold today.
Psychiatry professor Tahir Bhatti.
We're going to talk about the big questions, right? So God, does God exist? You know, purpose of life, you know, why we're here. I'm excited. I think it's going to be great.
And meditation coach Ayesha Suneja.
This is my favorite topic. I mean, nobody ever really asks you, right? What do you believe about God and the purpose of life and why are we here? That's what I want to talk about.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Oh man, this is so exciting. Taking it to the next level here on Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. We do it all commercial free. The Bigger Picture, this is the first edition of The Bigger Picture, so we're going to tackle some of those questions that are a little bit above water cooler grade, if you will. So not about sports, not about traffic, but about the things in life that sometimes I feel like we don't talk about enough these days.
Holy water cooler?
Yeah. You're welcome. Good. Way to pitch in, Rabbi. Right? I appreciate that. So, you know, I think the biggest question, and I see this happening personally right now a lot more people, a lot more atheists in the world now than there have ever been. That seems to be a growing population, a lot more agnostics. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of this. I'm just saying this is a fact of what's happening right now. A lot more people are questioning the potential reality or existence of God. So right off the bat, I think the biggest question out there, if you want to look at our existence, is God or no God? Tahir, what do you think?
Yeah, this is what I have to say. I believe God is not a noun, but it's a verb. I believe God's an experience. And it could be God, Goddess, infinite spirit, universe, whatever word people use. But I also have to say that for my own life, is that beautiful sunset, it was amazing experience, this connected sense to whatever outside of you, someone else. To me, that's God. I think God's outside of you, I think God's inside of you, I think it exists all around us, but we're trying to get to that space where we're connecting on a deeper level. And to me, it's an experience, it's a verb. And God is not a noun, someone out there, it's something that you have, that you experience. And anybody can have that.
Interesting. So a total change in how you look at the word itself is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's an experience, it's a verb. It's not a person, a place, or a thing, but more a feeling or some sort of connection that you get.
Yeah.
Interesting perspective. Ayesha, what do you think?
I agree. I really like the idea of the experience because no one can really tell you what God is or who God is. It has to be a personal experience. But back to your question, is there a God? Is there not a God? I think there's a prerequisite to that question, you know? And the prerequisite for me is who's asking? What part of you is asking? Because if it's your mind asking that question, I don't think you're ever going to get an answer that'll satisfy your mind, because your mind is meant to evaluate. It's meant to analyze, criticize, judge, condemn, or compliment, or praise. It's not wrong. It's its job. You know, we call it dharma. Your dharma is what you are meant to do, what your purpose is. So the dharma of water is to be wet, and the dharma of your mind is to question and evaluate and analyze. So if you're asking the question from the mind, you're never going to get an answer to satisfy you. But if you ask from another part of you, if it's the soul asking, is there a God, then there is no more question, because you can't ask something that you already are.
Ah, wow, that was a big twist. You gotta
Oh
follow.
my God.
So let me try to interlude just to give you a little
I'm
break.
so glad I'm here for this. It's amazing.
You said water, the dharma of water is to be wet, which is an incredible thing all in itself. You take hydrogen and oxygen, two extremely dry things, and you add them together in a certain way, and all of a sudden you get wetness. And this is sort of back to the whole idea of, there is no duality, right? That's a whole other question. There's no such thing as wet and dry. They're one and the same thing. They're just opposite sides of the same coin, like life and death.
Absolutely.
No such thing as the difference between the two. We should really just have one word for that, because right now you're living, but you're also dying. And within life, within death, there's a lot of life. If you ever feared for your life before, if you've ever been face to face with a wild animal or something like that, and you felt that death was a possibility, you would be very alive right then, wouldn't you? So that's a really, really good point. I appreciate that. Josh?
Oh, thank you for that nice little segue. I definitely appreciate that. I mean, I think what makes that question so interesting is how much we focus on it. In a way, to me at least, although I do find the question extremely interesting, I find that question sort of secondarily interesting over what it is that we sort of do with our faith. It's one of those things where, whether or not a person believes in God or not, it almost is irrelevant. I mean, it's so not interesting, because they either do or they don't. There isn't necessarily like a straight path to it. The more interesting thing for me is, you have these beliefs, well, what do you do with it? So for me, I find that the answer to that question is really yes and no. Is there a God of the Bible? Is there a God of literature? Is there a God that, exists in reality that's the same God that we've put into our literary sources? I personally don't believe in that God. But I do believe, and then the other question is, well, then what is God sort of in the minds of people? And you might say that, God is biography. Theology is always biography. So if you want to know what a person believes about God, you have to understand what their life story is, and that connects you and sort of your understanding of what they believe about God. Me personally, I do believe that there is a God, and that God exists, and that the sort of entire universe in that way, all of existence, is a part of this single God, this oneness, this overall oneness that exists. And we are minuscule, tiny cells within that overall body. And that's what I personally believe that God is. But if you're saying, is there a God like
Man in the clouds with a harp?
Yeah. I don't believe in that particular God. However, if a person does believe in that particular God, I think it does behoove us to show them respect in the particular belief system that they choose.
So you're saying it matters much less what someone believes and much more what they do with their
Yes, that to me is the way more interesting question. A person can believe or not believe. My question is, what are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with it?
It's a huge point that you make there, Rabbi. You're going down the yogic direction, by the way. It's a good segue for Heather.
I know.
Like the yogis, we have you guys like outnumbered today. But that's kind of, that's part of yoga in a sense. The truth, is what really matters. And, if you two believe, you two say God and you two say no God, have you gotten any closer to truth?
Yeah.
Have you gotten any further away? Does the sun not fall on you now? And the reality is, it does. It's the same for all of us.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten any closer to truth, and you haven't gotten any further away, and vice versa. So a very, very good point from the rabbi. Heather, are you ready to jump into this?
Absolutely. I think this is wonderful. Prior to yoga, I was one that was always seeking God outside of myself, and I think through the practice of yoga, it's completely alternated that. My relationship with God and growing up was quite interesting because I went to church a lot. And then when my parents divorced, it became magnified just to help us through the process of going through that. And then as I would grow up and go into high school, my mom would have Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons come and sit with us on the couch to introduce us to other religions. And that just started to spark me to recognize that there is so much more out there as opposed to what I was being taught, which was, in my mind, a white man in the clouds that if it was raining outside, I thought he was crying, or if there was thunder, that he was like up there throwing thunder down because he was upset at people. That's the imagery that I had. And then in hearing other religions, and then going off to college and learning women in religion, dating an atheist, my relationship has definitely gone through its ups and downs. And I think that as opposed to looking outside of myself, this practice has helped me to look within. And Dwayne Dyer, he was a teacher that I absolutely adored. And he's one that stated to have us look inside of ourselves to look for our own godlike qualities. And that's when it started to really shift for me.
It's very difficult to deny the fact that there is something divine in us, just based on the simple fact that, any one of us could eat a piece of bread right now, and by this afternoon our body would turn into a human being. So there's something inside of us, because that's an unconscious process. But if I could consciously look at a piece of bread in my hand and turn it into a human being, I would be God himself, right? But that's inside of all of us. So you can't really get around, no one could argue with you, I think, that if they just understood that basic fact that the Creator is inside in some fashion. But it does open up a whole nother conversation about belief versus what you know. A lot of people choose to believe something. If you believe something, then you're essentially assuming, you're making some sort of assumption, or maybe a whole myriad of assumptions. If you know something, for example, then you're not making any assumptions, something that you know. So, and that goes to our second topic we'll get to in a second, but I want to go back to, so these beliefs, the stories you were told, when it rains outside, that's God crying. These are things that I think a lot of people have been told as you're growing up. The people telling you this didn't even believe it. So many things we were been told by people who didn't even believe the things they were telling us. We were made to believe. We were brought up to believe that this is the way it is, right? But we didn't really have any knowledge of this stuff. We just were told this is what's happening, and so we believed. It was a trustworthy source. Maybe it was someone, a member of the clergy, maybe it was our parents, maybe it was our grandparents, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny. There's other things too, okay? It's not just about religion or God, but those are the things that we were told, and so we chose to believe. And then the problem with believing is that when you make assumptions, that your body will, your physical body will not buy into it fully. It just won't. Your belief will only be acceptable to you as long as it's convenient for you. I see this all the time with people who say, I believe in predestiny, I believe in God, everything happens for a reason, but yet I wake up with nightmares and I'm frightened at night. Well, what are you frightened about? If you really believe that everything happens for a reason and you're gonna, and it's all God's will, So as long as it's convenient, you can believe. You know, is there a different way that maybe we should look at bringing these things up with the youths out there? Anybody want to jump in on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about theology and about faith. And when I say theology, I mean the structured arguments, the descriptive words that we use when we talk about our particular belief in God. When we talk about faith, that's what we say when we usually mean belief. And while we tend to sort of understand what theology is and how it works, although I say theology is biography, I think we name faith incorrectly. I think we think about faith almost in scientific terms. Like, in other words, the purpose of belief is in thinking that something is true that doesn't seem possible to be true. And it's almost like you're thinking of it like a scientist. I can't prove it. I don't have evidence to prove my hypothesis, but I believe it, and therefore that's what faith is. And I'd like to say that that's not what faith is. I think faith is relationship. I think faith is the connection that we have. I'll never forget, I used to go to this synagogue in New York just before our high holidays, and the services were extremely early in the morning, and you had to like really commit in order to be there. I'm talking 3 o'clock in the morning until 7, really serious. And there was a man there who never took part. He always went, but he never took part, an older guy. So one year, I finally kind of had enough gumption to talk to him, and I went up to him and I said, "You come here every year, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're not going to pray, why are you here?" Out of curiosity and respect. And he rolled up his sleeve, and he showed me that tattoo on his arm, showing that he was, in fact, a Holocaust survivor. And he said to me that because God didn't do God's job in protecting him and his family during the Holocaust, he was going to show God that he didn't have to do his job and pray leading up to the high holidays. So this knocked me off my feet. I couldn't believe that a person would have that much
spite almost. Huh?
Spite, that's right, towards God. I mean, how irreverent can a human being be? And then I thought about it again, and I realized that this man had more faith in his pinky finger than I could ever hope to have, because he didn't even question whether or not God existed. He was just really mad. And there's something really holy and beautiful about that. So that's what I'd like to offer, that faith isn't belief in something that seems unbelievable. Let's forget that. Faith is your relationship with whatever it is that's larger than yourself, that wakes you up in the morning and gets you going.
Awesome story, Rabbi. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I just want to just add to that, is I do believe about that sense that, going back to the God question about faith, that it's about the belief you hold about yourself as well in a kind, loving way. So I always aspire for myself and for other people I work with, saying I want them to live their best, highest, most loving, most authentic self. And as they do that, they're connecting, I think, to their higher self, their God self, that part of them that the picture's bigger than being in that space where we get caught up in the ego and into the anger or the fear. And all that's still part of it, still part of the equation of life. But I think we can aspire to be greater and grander and more loving. Right? And that to me is kind of adding to that. Right? I love the story you say, and saying that to me that's being connected. That's the relationship. And then it becomes outside of me, it becomes inside of me, it becomes everyone around me.
Who's next?
Well,
Ayesha?
I'd like to add to that. My personal story is that I've been looking for God my whole life. And externally and internally, excuse me, and never ever understood why we couldn't see God. That was a question, even as a child, I thought, why can't we see God? If God is there and if you're so powerful, why won't you show yourself? And it took me a long time to realize that there's two things we can't see. One, we can't see God, and two, we can't see ourselves. I mean, I can't even look into my own eyes. I can look into a mirror and see a reflection of myself, but I cannot see myself. None of us can. So then what is that? Why is it that we cannot see God, and why can we not even look at our own face or look into our own eyes? If all the mirrors were taken away, we couldn't even see ourselves. And what I found was they're one and the same. There is no difference. If you're looking for God, you'll find yourself. If you're looking for yourself, you'll find God. I believe that you can't separate the two. So it's quite wonderful that you can't see God, because if we were able to see God or ourselves with the senses that we have in this limited capacity of the body, although it's brilliant and all that that can do, our ego would step in and we would start to evaluate and criticize and separate. And because we can't separate, because we can't see God and we can't see ourselves, we can only have the potential to experience God and experience ourselves, and that's a whole different thing.
Bam. That's a mic drop moment right there, honestly. It really is. I mean, you described everything about yoga and union all in one. I mean, I was going to go to Heather. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did she steal your thunder?
Oh, no. No, I absolutely would love to piggyback on that, because I think that's my intention as an instructor of yoga, to help people see themselves, to help them embrace themselves and honor themselves, and as well see in the ways that they get in their own ways. I try to take my students on an experience every day, every week, to help them just recognize who they are and to embrace who they are, not by what the thoughts are creating, that neighborhood gossiper that exists in the mind that likes to criticize and judge and always have opinions. I want them to drop in and down to the whispers of their heart, because we can very much so get in our own ways, but by remembering our true nature, which essentially is joy and peaceful, that's what the practice of yoga is, to help a person to connect intimately to the core of themselves. And I think that we need those spaces throughout the day to check in and to stop movement, to stop life, so that we can go in within ourselves and see what's going on.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, yoga, union, you know, connecting the inner and the outer so that there's just one, right? That's sort of the idea behind the definition of it. And I agree with you that in the practice of yoga and the physical postures and in the ethical practice, you can definitely learn something about yourself. No doubt about that. I think it's different for everybody, but there's something about it. There's something physical, because as you said, the mind, if you try to figure it out, Ayesha, you know, if you try to figure it out in your mind, right, you'll find that it's so difficult, because the intellect's always cutting everything up, and even if you could see God, immediately you would judge it, just like you said. You would start cutting it up. And in yoga, there's something about the body that's different, that's more reliable. And in doing the physical postures and doing the meditations, you can attach to that more reliable, more stable, more real element of divinity that is within the body, which we've already proven, right, earlier on in the discussion. So I do believe that we can talk about this all day. Did you want to add something else to that?
Yeah, I just want to, one of my favorite Indian proverbs states that within ourselves we have 4 rooms. We have the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual room within ourselves. And oftentimes we just hang out in one of those rooms. And through the practice of yoga or a walking meditation or anything it may be, but for myself I'll speak to yoga, because it helps you to air out each of those rooms. It's a physical practice, emotional, spiritual, and whatnot. And when we're able to do that, I think we're able to feel more like a complete person. But I think that we kind of need to air out every single one of those rooms as opposed to hanging out in just one.
This is amazing. We all have different answers for this. Imagine that. I think the purpose of life is to just be present. And that's the only thing we owe ourselves and everyone around us, is to just be right here, right now. And if we can do that and take action as it's needed, then everything will work itself out. And as far as the way that you feel and the way that you are, just be the way you want to be. Who's stopping you? And that's it for the bigger picture. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.